and welcome to The Decision Makers, the show where we dig into what it takes to run a town. Today my guest is Don Walmsley. He's the Executive Director of Neepawa Area Immigrant Settlement Services. I wrote it down to get that exactly right because everyone just calls it Settlement Services.
Yep, that's right.
So we're going to start way back.
Okay.
Not birth, but way back.
Yeah, please, because that goes way back, and we don't want to do that.
So what is your background before coming up into settlement services?
I have had a variety of backgrounds. I worked for Air Standards and Studies for a while with the provincial government. I spent 26 and a half years working with the Department of Family Services. It used to be Health and Family Services, then it was just Family Services, based out of Neepawa. I've been in Neepawa since '82. And then took an early retirement simply because I could, and did a number of things. Pumped gas at Co-op for a while, which was an absolute blast. It was, you just 45-second touch with people. Hi, how are you? Fill it up. Regular, premium, windows washed, oil checked, tire pressure, and that was it. It was really a good way to sort of start a new life, right?
Yeah.
And then I did some work around working on a relapse prevention program for mothers with addictions. I ended up doing a bit of work at Touchwood. I did some teaching through ACC, and then I saw an ad and answered and ended up in the settlement sector.
Yeah. Which was, at the time, a lot smaller than it is now.
Very much smaller. It also did different things than what we do now. The settlement sector per se is an organization, a nonprofit organization that's funded through the Department of Immigration and Refugee Citizenship Canada to provide services to permanent residents. Well, in Manitoba, that wasn't when it was happening because the federal money was provided, and Manitoba said they would do that, and so they ran the program for the federal government. But there was more of a focus on temporary foreign workers, because remember at the time, that's what was coming in.
Okay.
It was still a long process to become a permanent resident, so that was the key thing, helping people get settled in that capacity. And then in about 2013, 2012, thereabouts, the IRCC repatriated these programs, and our focus became back on permanent residents. And so it was a very small office, and actually whittled down to, by the time I came into this position, there were 2 of us. And there's 16 now.
Right. That's what I was going to ask next. We'll get into the in-between part, but right now we're up to 16 people in that office. Full-time?
13 full-time, 3. Oh no, it must be 17 people, because there's 13 full-time and 4 part-time.
Okay, so 17 people from the 2, and that's just 10 years ago.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, actually, going back to your background, how your working with social services has sort of informed how you approach immigration.
I must be clear, we're not an immigration service.
Sorry, yeah.
Immigration happens before. We're a settlement service. And I think when you're taking a look at what happens in settlement, what our purpose, our raison d'etre, is to provide information, orientation, workshop, information sessions, whatever, and also appropriate referrals to newcomers who are with the PR, permanent resident status, to help them settle and integrate into this area of Canada where they're living now. And that can involve anything and everything that has to do with an individual or a family. We are an information providing agency. We're not a fixer. We don't fill out forms. We don't do that. But what we do is empower and inform individuals, newcomers, to be able to make their own informed decisions and to help them complete their forms and do that kind of thing. We have such a range of services now because getting back to your question, we're dealing with people. We're dealing with issues as they relate to human beings, because whether you come from Tuktoyaktuk, or you come from Nigeria, or you come from the Philippines, or you come from Greece, we're all still human beings, and we all still have personalities, and we all still have family dynamics. We have a number of things. The challenge becomes, when you have grown up and been raised, and your whole family has for generations upon generations upon generations in one culture, we tend to bring our cultures with us, which makes perfect sense. But now we're in a new culture and having to find, where do we fit here and not lose our own culture? And so that's the dynamic, and that's the kind of focus that we look at when we're taking a look at settlement services.
Right.
My background in family services, when you're working with families, when you're working with challenging situations, when you're dealing with crises, when you're looking at management of programs, when you're looking at staff development, all of that, in a lesser sense than what I'm doing now, had an influence and gave me some background to be able to look at where we go here, where we went here, how we were going to get here.
Right. I think now, correct me if I'm wrong, 2008, that was, I think, the year that
basically that's the year that the original settlement program started.
Right.
It didn't even have an office. I think if memory serves me correctly, and in talking to predecessors, basically they didn't have an office, spent a lot of time in High Life, which made sense, right? Which made sense. And then it slowly evolved as the influx of newcomers coming in, as the plant was growing, became more and became more and became more.
So we went from just kind of looking at how this fits into the overall town. We went from it not existing 15 years ago to possibly being one of the most influential organizations as far as the direction the town is going in.
Well, I mean, thank you for that, but I'm not sure we're really highly influential. We're part of the process. And it's when you look at such an incredibly fast change, and it's not just a speed of change, it's a quantity of change. When you look at in 10 years going from 3,400 to over 6,000 people, that's an incredible stress on all kinds of situations in the system. So everybody has to play together. We have been extremely fortunate in this council and the past two councils, really having a sense of, we need to look forward. When you're looking at anything being successful, especially when you've got growth coming in that's pushing things, you need to have vision. You need to have visionaries within whatever sector it is that can see beyond today, can see beyond 3 years, 5 years, 10 years or more to say, what are we going to need? Right. Hence, we're in a position where our water treatment plant is up. We've increased our water reserve. They're doing amazing work with regards to the sewage treatment, all able to accommodate growing needs. Right. They've been thinking, and they're always thinking about that. The big thing now, of course, in the plate, with any community like ours, whether it's due to immigration growth or not, is housing. So it's about vision. It's about looking at visions and making decisions at the right kinds of time.
Yeah. I think where I was going with that was just the interconnectedness of settlement services with virtually every aspect of life in the town.
I think we have to be, because we're looking at health, we're looking at education, we're looking at municipal, we're looking at general life, community, recreation. Same kinds of things we looked at before, only we were gently floating along. Neepawa is a beautiful community, and it had become known as a really great community to retire to, and suddenly that dynamic has dramatically changed. The movement of our people coming in here, they're young families. So suddenly we've got young children, so we've got increased births, we've got increased pressure on our school division. Our school division, my Lord, has just gone from we're struggling to suddenly, holy cow, we look, how many school divisions get 2 new schools within 3 years announced? And major schools. And the fact that the first one that came in most recently, our middle year school, was at capacity.
Yeah. It was at capacity pretty much when it opened.
It pretty much. And so Neepawa, if you wanted to take a microscopic or microcosm shot of what can happen with incredibly intense and dramatic growth in a community, take a look at what happened in Neepawa. Take a leaf out of the book. Have there been challenges? Of course there have, and there will continue to be. But if you take a look at how we've coped with it, you compare to some of the other communities, especially rural communities, that the growth has come, but they haven't had that same vision to look beyond what our immediate needs are, to say, look, this is going to... I remember comments when they first started bringing people over, and I remember somebody asking, somebody on council at the time, and I have no idea who it is. There may be a paper record of it somewhere, well, what do you think? Where are these people going to go? Oh, well, we're not going to have to worry about that, because if they go here, they'll end up going to Carberry or somebody else, And the truth of the matter is, initially, everybody wanted to be here. What we've seen in the past 3 to 5 years is we've seen a really comfortable, what we call secondary migration, where people have started to move and live in Gladstone, work in Neepawa, or find work in Gladstone, or Minnedosa, Plumas, Glenella, around Carberry. We're getting all sorts of different things happening. And the evolution is natural, and it's good to see it happen. I'd be more concerned if it wasn't, if we were bottlenecking somewhere. Yeah.
I think part of that, initially coming in, at least this is a conversation I've had with people before, is that there was a cultural difference in the understanding that, 10 miles up the road for someone who grew up here is nothing. But 10 miles of farmland to the next community maybe seemed like a very large distance to people coming here from denser areas.
It is, and there's no question. The number of times I've seen the sort of, we call it culture shock, but you could also almost call it shell shock. People coming in, arriving in the middle of the night in the Winnipeg airport. It's February. There's snow on the ground. It's cold. Getting in and driving, and getting in the vehicle that was provided to bring them here, and driving that length of time between Winnipeg and Portage. And we all know that. You can pretty much close your eyes, keep your steering wheel straight, and away you go for the most part, right?
Yep.
They're driving and driving and driving, and they still haven't hit Portage, and they still haven't gotten to us.
Yeah.
And then and the big thing often is that, where is everybody? They're not used to driving those kinds of lengths without running into a smaller community here or there. Like, you just sort of move out of one and almost segue right into another one and keep going into another one. It doesn't. So the things like the concept of size, we tend to forget about how big Canada really is. And when you look at our population and how much unpopulated land is, not all of it is easily habitable.
Very true.
And so there's a big misconception that, look at all the space Canada has. We'll go live up north. Sadly, we'll go live in the bush. Well, have you ever seen mosquitoes hit a horse? So that is a shock, because the geography is this, basically we're not in Kansas anymore, Dorothy. We're somewhere totally wow. And so it's all about fit. When we take a look at human beings by their very nature, we are instinctively driven to see, where do we fit? Where do we fit in any community? Where do I fit? Where do you fit? Where our natural groupings are, who we instinctively gravitate towards, the kind of work we do, the variety of things. So when you're coming somewhere new, you're new at a school, and I know that because I changed schools. How do you fit?
Yeah.
Okay? And so we've got a larger quantitative issue with finding out how to fit. Now, it's a bit smoother now, but there's still people who have challenges.
Absolutely.
Although we have predominantly one ethnicity, and that's from the Philippines, we have other cultures coming in. Everybody's saying, so I'm here, it's a new country, I want to do well, how do I fit? But remember, wherever we go, we bring our own baggage, right? You travel on a plane, you're bringing your own baggage. Well, you bring your own cultural, not baggage, and what I mean by that is just your cultural sensitivities, your cultural understandings.
Yeah.
So when you come to a place, your terms of reference, your frames of reference are your own cultural background, not this. So it's a matter of how do it's learning to adapt, and that's where our role is. And that involves helping the community at large, employers. When you look at the number of newcomers who have moved here and it's pretty hard to find any kind of employment or service agency in this community, and partly this area, that doesn't have a newcomer in it. So
off the top of my head, I can't name one. So
so there's been a real. The other key is embracement by the community. Neepawa's been pretty darn good with that.
Yeah.
You know.
Certainly. You mentioned that Neepawa is sort of a microcosm of the settlement ecosystem that people could look at. And I think the truth is people have been looking at Neepawa as that microcosm and looking at how ways that can be implemented in other areas because of our successes in this area.
Yes, and learn from us. Learn from what worked, to learn from what didn't work or hasn't worked.
Yeah.
The fact that it's never going to be a smooth road. And we talk about decision makers. At every point of the compass, there are always decisions being made. Big ones, little ones, short-term ones, long-term ones. There's always some kind of decisions, and we're looking at, well, what are we seeing as a consequence of those decisions?
What do you think are some of the most significant decisions that this community has made that have sort of fostered this growth?
I think probably the biggest one is the acceptance of the fact that people are coming here.
Yeah.
I remember we had one of our local well-known news agencies come and spend some time in Neepawa. And they confided in me at the end. They were thinking there was another agenda. It couldn't be the way it was. And they thought there was an a story, right? Couldn't find it. They said people truly are happy. I just talked to someone else just very recently, made that comment. I'm coming here, actually yesterday. Everybody here smiles and waves and says hello. It's friendly. You feel safe here. Consistently, that's what I hear. And you have to remember, people who are moving here, we see almost exclusively people who have made a conscious decision to come here. We're not seeing, and that's not because we don't want to, it's just the circumstances. We're not seeing refugees who are people who are fleeing conflict, trauma kinds of situations, not because they want to leave their country, but because they have no option, and it's safety, and it's critical. And it's a whole different dynamic. And you see that in other areas, in smaller communities or in larger ones. That's a different aspect to coming to a new culture and trying to find a way to fit in. And it's not all roses, okay? Don't anybody think that we can go to all sorts of places and you're going to find situations where things aren't that rosy. We're a small enough community that it's easy to make connections. The town has been incredibly supportive, eager to engage, eager to help, trying to understand what the difference is. There are differences between how we live here. You come from, let's face it, you come to Canada. Canada is a cold country. We have seasons. Some will say we have winter, and then we have non-winter, and then we have winter again. They'll say all sorts of things. But the truth is, we're used to cooking a certain way. We use ovens. We use stovetops. We don't use a large percentage of probably deep frying, although it's there. Well, you come from a culture which is so hot. What's an oven? What's an oven? And electricity is so expensive that it's easier to look at deep frying. Put a fire in a kettle pot, that kind of thing. So you come here and suddenly there are adjustments you need to make to understand. That's very simplistic, but so you're not eating or looking at eating the same kind of foods because they wouldn't even think of it. You know, the baking, all that kind of stuff. That's either purchased, or they make their own clay ovens in certain countries. You know, when you start peeling away, it's like an onion. You start peeling away the layers. There are so many different things that we don't think about
We would
living
never
here.
think about.
But we would if we went to live in another country.
Yeah.
And so that's what we're seeing in this sort of situation. So everybody plays. Education system, the arts community, the business community, the municipal people, education, the healthcare community. It's all being impacted and all being changed in many ways.
Now, the people you said, people coming here are making the conscious choice to come to Neepawa.
Yeah.
Mostly this is for employment.
Yes.
Major employer High Life.
Yeah.
Also in our healthcare system, we've had people come over.
Yep.
Which means that these people are coming over for one job, and then the family comes as well. And
Yeah.
I think that's a huge part of what you're doing with settlement services.
Yes.
Is the family.
Yeah, family reconciliation, yes.
And what resources are available for the spouse that comes that maybe had a career in engineering in the Philippines before they came here, and
That is a nationwide challenge.
yeah.
We are seeing some major sort of movement in some regards with that. And I must say that over the decades, there have been different responses to that. We've had reciprocity agreements with certain other countries for certain professions where, okay, we can go to that country, they can come to our country, and we've got some of that. That's gone. So the credential recognition process is incredible. It's having some real tweaking done to it now. We recognize that it's laborious. It prohibits. If you come over and you've got a family, what are you doing? What's one of the biggest things that people incur when they're looking at moving from one country to another? It's cost.
Yeah.
It's money. So you get a family coming over, the first thing is you've got bills to pay. You may have borrowed money from family to come. You make all those kinds of adjustments. So to stop that, to have no source of income, and then say to go back to school for 6 months or a year or whatever, to gain back your professional licensure, it's prohibitive.
That's a huge ask.
Single people and couples tend to move through that process quicker. And then you still have to get a job. And you've got all these professionals, thank you. These professional associations. And some are very quick to absorb. Some have more sort of hoops to go through. We've recognized for a long time this is a critical area. And if we want to replace the baby boomers and other people who are retiring out, we need skilled people to do it. And our young people coming out aren't necessarily skilled. So that's one of the reasons for immigration is so critical here. We have we produce in Canada 1.4 children. I think that's it, roughly. And what we need is 2.1.
Right. That's not 1.4 is not a replacement rate.
No, not a thank you. That's where I'm going. Not a replacement rate. So we're looking at other countries. And remember the immigration process that happens here is not the only one. People are coming over in all sorts of other streams.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
And you're looking at international students who will come, train, want to stay and try and find work here. But immigration moves. It is an organic. It's not flexible necessarily, but it's not a static process. And so at times we have things flow, and at times they relook at things. For example, right now they're looking at putting, it's in the paper, on the news, a cap on international students. And they're doing that because of the impact on the international students for housing. Remember, there are educational institutions that make a lot of money, a lot more on the international students than you do in the regular. And spots are getting tighter. You cannot look at it just as a single, isolated item. It is
there's always an ecosystem.
Yes, ecosystem is a good word because there's so many facets. And they keep popping up.
And people, it's hard for anyone who isn't embedded in that process to be able to think of the ramifications of certain decisions.
And it's fluid, it's ongoing, And those people who are in this, and people in the town, and looking at town growth, and whether it's from immigration or not, you're having to look at vision. You have to make decisions around vision.
Yeah.
And it's always challenging.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's a gamble.
Yep.
And a flip of the coin. But you need to. I have a process, just a very essential process that I look at when I'm looking at making a decision. Okay.
Yeah.
And it's simple, but it involves so many other things in it. And it's called, in Italy, Mussolini always comes first.
Okay.
Intention. What do you want to do?
Okay.
Information. What do you need in order to do that? So research, whatever.
Okay.
Mussolini, what method are you going to use to achieve this? Comes communication. What are your communication lines? Who do you need to engage? How do you engage them? That kind of thing. First is other factors.
Okay.
I missed A, ammunition. What are you going to need to make it happen? I've used that basic rubric for years and years. It was taught to me by my father. He said it's part of what you do when you look at a battle plan. It was just a mnemonic that allowed for that. But it makes you think about certain things. And so when I look at it, how does this fit? What do I want to do? What do I need to know? You know, and how am I going to go about this?
Yeah.
And what do I need to help? What ammunition? What supports? Who am I going to need to bring in? Mm-hmm. And communication. We need to have communication is one of the critical pieces, because most things, or a lot of things, break down because the communication is poor. Yeah. You're not communicating at the right time to the right people. And be prepared for other factors you didn't consider. So it's and you then got to, when you make a decision, you have to then be prepared for whatever consequences occur. All right? It's not sort of, I'll just make it and see what happens. You do need to be prepared, especially when you're dealing with people and supports and programs. You're doing the best you can do. You're making your best estimate. It could be an educated estimate. It could be an educated guess. Yeah. But you have to then say, okay, now I'm going to let the little bird fly. Let's see where it goes. But I must be prepared to deal with the consequences. Yeah. So, hope for the best, prepare for the worst, that kind of thing.
And it seems like that rubric also prioritizes what you're looking at. So you start with, okay, what is intention?
You got to be clear.
Yeah.
What is it you really want to do? And that can take some time.
Yeah.
Well, I think I want to do this. Well, guess what? After I think about it and do that, really what I need to do is this. Okay, that's what I need to focus on. Yeah. So that's your first.
And that does not waste all this time going through this process and realizing you're working towards the wrong goal.
Well, carrying on. You clarify first, what do you want your end result ideally to be? Yeah. That's your intent, right? And then, okay, what am I going to need? Am I going to need to research? Am I going to need to read books? Am I going to go to the internet? I'm going to talk to people, and I'm going to explore different things. Yeah. All the information I need to help me start working towards my intent.
And this always happens before you start.
For me, it has to, because what information comes in can change how you're looking at your intent. And then method. Okay, so how am I going to do this? Yeah. So, all right, if my method includes research, it also has to include something that's tangible. Yeah. How am I going to put this into practice? Yeah. What's going to be necessary to put it into practice? Yeah. And so I've decided this is how I'm going to put it into practice. So ammunition, what supports? What do I need to have in place to make that happen? Yeah. So I've got my intent. I've got the information that supports my intent, helps me give direction. I'm looking at how am I going to do that? And now I'm looking at, so what do I need to add in to get that, to help with doing that? And then communication. And that, all of these pieces can happen at any one time, but make sure you've covered it off. Are my communication lines clear?
And I feel like that's the one that is most often overlooked.
Yeah. Who do I need to be part of this? Yeah. And make sure they are part of it. And then when you got it, you look at it and say, what could possibly happen here besides a meteor hitting the Earth? And it just helps. For me, it just helps. You start focusing, as you said, on certain aspects, And if you check them off, there you go.
And sometimes I think as part of that process, you realize that this is not the right time for this project. This is not
Exactly. At
what
some
we
point,
actually want to do.
some point you make a decision.
Yeah.
And other people use different approaches, different methods. That for me is just being simple because it just, I'm looking at intent. Well, what is my intent? And you spend time. None of these come quickly.
Yeah.
And some of the others, you're answering that question about who, for example, in communication.
Yeah.
As you're going along, well, I'll need to do that, so I put that in the communication box. And so you build up your thing as you go along.